Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found your way to this show. And if you've been here from the very beginning, thank you so much. Thank you for continuing to be with me even through my hiatus of last year and my bumpy start to this year. Thank you truly. You've been a part of something that is about to grow into something bigger and deeper, even more real and raw. Because today I want to tell you about a new chapter. This podcast has always been about helping you awaken to your soul self, and that hasn't changed a bit. Something shifted in me recently, a download from spirit, and I feel called to take the show somewhere to be more honest, not only with myself, but with all of you. Somewhere a little bit more human and talking about our human experiences while we're going through our spiritual awakening. Somewhere that meets you exactly where you are, not just where you're trying to get to. Because I believe that everybody's path is not a straight line, it's bumpy. And not only that, everyone is at a different point in their path. My friend Carly is, I'm going to take a quote from her from Archangel Metatron. You're never one step off your path. And I think that was almost a validation for me to take this new path to this podcast. So today is the beginning of that. And I just wanted to start by telling you my story again for the new listeners, but also just to remind you all where I started and just to show you that everybody's path is different. Let's take a deep breath and just kind of tune into our bodies. Of course, if you're driving or operating any machinery, if you're not in a safe space, don't close your eyes, but you can take the deep breath in. So let's all just take a deep breath in and deep breath out and just feel your angels surrounding you. And I believe that any messages that you get from this episode is meant for you. So let me take you back to where I first started to question my path. I think COVID was a very hard time for me and it made me question a lot of things. Those first 2 weeks at home were very hard, and then finding out schools were going completely remote, that was a whole new area for everybody. And that came with a lot of extra stresses and a lot of louder thoughts. And then 2022, I just started to question my purpose here. I knew that I love doing tech support. I still do it to this day. I love working with the teachers and the students. They just felt like there was something more inside of me to help others. And I've known this since I was a very little girl. I remember being 4 or 5 and telling my parents, I want to be a doctor. And they go, you realize blood is involved, right? And to back that up, it gives me a little kind of queasy. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to be a doctor then, but I want to help people in some capacity. So I think that's why I went in the technical field, is because I can help people understand certain concepts of the computer and how it works and being able to fix it and kind of make their day. We are just all here on Earth experiencing different experiences, making our way through our purpose in so many different ways. There are so many different possibilities of how we find our purpose, get to our purpose. So in 2022, I started coming home and I kind of looked up in the sky and I kept saying, God, universe, source, I know I'm here for a bigger purpose. I just don't know what it is. So what is my purpose? And I asked that for a couple months. Every day came home and I asked, God, what is my purpose? In the spring of 2022, I remember vividly going to do my spring cleaning in my room. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go put on some music. And all of a sudden I heard, when I say I hear, it's more of my thoughts. But I had this thought and I said, go put on a podcast. I stopped myself for a second, like, a podcast? I've never listened to a podcast. I'm more of a music girl. I don't know where this is coming from. So I said, all right, I'm gonna skip it. Skip that thought, keep cleaning, and I heard it again. They'll put on a podcast. I'm like, why am I putting on a podcast? I opened the podcast app and I think I typed in like spirit or angels, one of those two keywords. The first one was Teresa Caputo's. And I said, oh, I love her. But I've watched the Long Island meeting for many, many years. Is this going to be the same thing? I think I played it for a good like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, this is kind of the same as her show, even though her gifts are amazing. So I went to the next podcast and it was Angels in Awakening podcast by Julie Jancis. And I clicked it and I played it and I just remember having like this little light bulb moment go off. Like, I think God was trying to get me to that. And it felt really aligned. And I continued playing her podcast. And I even found her on YouTube and started watching the podcast interviews on YouTube as I'm more of a visual person and then an auditory, which is funny because I'm more clairaudient than I am more visual when it comes to my gifts. All right, let me go purchase her. And I'm like, I don't want anybody to know that I'm like reading this book and trying to figure out my own gifts. Because Julie said that everyone has gifts, and that was a big light bulb moment for me. And there was an exercise in there where you could like feel the energy through your hands. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I really think I can do this. And then it was Memorial Day weekend, 2022. And I kept having this thought, join her membership, join her membership. And it was like money to spend on myself, which I don't normally like to do. And I kept hearing it. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, no, no, no. So then I had this thought, like, go type in Julie Jancis in the podcast search bar and see if she was featured on other podcasts. And I think she was featured on A Psychic Story. And at the end, she's like, with this code, I'll give you a free 7-day trial of my annual membership. And I said, all right, Spirit, you hooked me. I will go purchase the annual membership. And that really opened the doors for me. So what I'm trying to get at is everybody's path is different. How we have our spiritual awakening is different, but we're all spiritual beings in human bodies. We're experiencing human life on earth, and that comes with so much joy and beauty, but it also comes with a lot of noise, many loud thoughts that we have. And most of us spend our whole lives just trying to manage them and not try to understand them and what they're trying to tell us. If I listened to that loud voice that said, no, don't go put that podcast on. No, don't go do the trial for the membership. Don't get the book. I wouldn't be where I am on my path today. I listen to that quieter voice, quieter thought. And when I hear spirit, when I hear my angels, they're in my own voice because it's part of my intuition. And I always try to tune into that quieter part of me. But being in the human world that we live in, our thoughts are very loud. Societal expectations are very loud. Every experience is unique. God, universe, source gave us, I believe, two things. One, free will to make decisions, to make choices. And two, that we all have these gifts. When I started listening to this podcast, it really opened me up. I didn't have like this big like vision of me doing this as work, but it was very subtle. It was like a little light bulb moment. And I will never ever forget this moment because it was so vivid that I felt like I was talking myself out of listening to this podcast because it just logically didn't make any sense. And what Spirit has always tried to tell me is that sometimes logic doesn't make sense. You don't always have to find the logical answer. And for me, that's very hard as I have that technical background of if A doesn't work, then B must be the option. And Spirit has been really teaching me about tune into yourself, tune into your intuition, tune into that quieter thought. You don't always need to take the first thing that comes to you. Quieter, it's a very calm voice. It really opened up my eyes to, I remember growing up, we'd watch Long Island Medium, Tyler Henry, Seatbelt Medium. I think I've watched many different medium shows. And I always said, I believe that everybody has gifts. We just don't know who has who what. Becoming on this journey makes me think that we really do all have these gifts. We just need to be open and honest to receive these gifts and kind of quiet down the noise. The way that Spirit is bringing it through right now is, have you ever had a gut feeling moment? Have you ever had a thought about calling somebody and then them calling you or you call them and they really needed you? I remember doing testing at school, like, quiz or a test or something. And I always be like, all right, this is the answer. And then the loud thought would come and say, no, 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 that's not the answer. And come to find out my gut was actually right. And those are just two examples of your intuition. They're also bringing to me, have you ever heard your name and then there's nobody nearby? That's spirit trying to reach you. Another example that they're whispering in my ear is, have you ever seen something in the corner of your eye or thought you saw somebody that looked exactly like a past loved one? And I think every single one of us has questioned at some point in our life is, do we have intuition and how does it work? I've been really tested to trust in my angels and trust in my intuition and what it's bringing me. And sometimes that's hard because you want to think of the logical thing to do. For example, I remember coming home from work one day And I heard my intuition say, take that left instead of going straight. Take the back roads instead of going forward to the main road. Guys, I just want to go home. So I listened to my intuition because it just felt very strong. And I took the back roads home and come to find out there was an accident and a backup on the main road. And I said, okay, Spirit, you've got my attention. I will learn how to tune into that little intuition. And what I've come to understand from Spirit and from the angels is that even though we have 60,000 thoughts a day, some are louder than others, quieter ones, the more gentle ones, is from your soul self, from your higher self, from your angels, your guides, your intuition. And you might be asking, what is a spirit team? Your spirit team is made of God, universe, source, archangels, angels, guides, loved ones. And their mission here is to help you and guide you through this lifetime, help you try to stay on your path, guide you. Of course, that you have free will, so they can't interfere, but they can make suggestions and they can do those little whispers like, hey, you could try this. Hey, you might want to go over there. We all here have our spiritual beings in a human body, and we need to all learn the difference between our intuition, listening to our angels, and our regular thoughts. And our angels will even drop thoughts in our brains. And I really think that that moment of go put on a podcast was them dropping a thought, saying, hey, try this. It wasn't big and flashy. It's not like I had a vision. This was a very quiet, like, hey, go put on a podcast. And I think that's why they want me to bring this into the podcast, because I can talk about spirituality all I want and all day long. But first and foremost, we are humans right now. We are on Earth, and we're going to experience the lower vibrational emotions of sadness and anger and anxiousness and many others. But we need to try to stay high vibrational, stay in the oneness in God, universe, sources, energy. And this new direction that we're taking that is showing that we can experience the human life. We're going to experience these loud thoughts, the noise of society, social media, so many things, and that we all have different experiences. And I think that's what God, universe, source is really trying to get me to talk about on this podcast, is that my experience is different from your experience. And that's special, that's unique, and that's beautiful. And some of our thoughts are trying to protect us, trying to warn us, trying to keep us safe. But when we allow those loud thoughts to control the show, to run the show, then we're kind of losing our spiritual part of our being, where it is to be that high vibrational being, to be in oneness, to experience this life with a different set of eyes. And when we are born, we are still in that high vibrational state. We are still very connected with our spiritual being, our spiritual self, God, universe, source. And that's why after the age of about 5 or 6, we stop seeing spirit, God, universe, source, because we start to get molded into this logical human society, human form. But we need to learn how to do both, acknowledge and manage the loud voices, understand why these anxious thoughts aren't our enemy. These anxious thoughts are trying to protect us and keep us safe. But if we believe that we are safe already, God, universe, source, and our angels around us, protecting us and guiding us, then do we really need those anxious thoughts? What about our sad thoughts? Sometimes we can't quiet down the sad or the anxious thoughts. We don't need to always silence those. We can just learn how to heal those thoughts, provide our thoughts with oneness energy, high vibrational energy. But they know it, the intuition is part of us all. It's part of being a spiritual being. And I think our soul selves, our angels, our guides, our loved ones, God, universe, source, is waiting very patiently for it to blossom, for our intuition to kind of step forward, help us quiet those loud thoughts. And that's what the show is really becoming. It's becoming a place where we can do the inner work that we need, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual work, so that we can finally hear, feel, see, and sense our angels, develop this communication with our angels. I'm hoping to bring on some therapists and counselors, but also because I am no medical professional. If you need professional help, please seek professional help, is what the angels are bringing through, because some of these thoughts need that professional help. I'm only here as an angel messenger to bring through messages, because this work deserves more than just spiritual work. you need to get really grounded in, and you need that professional support. I will be bringing angel messages along the way because that is my gift. And I really want to keep this podcast spiritual as well. Focus on healing our inner child, inner thoughts, because that's really important. So over the next several weeks, we're going to explore how we're going to spend time with the loud thoughts. We're going to get to know them. We're going to understand them. We're going to learn to quiet them through our intuition. That way our intuition can come through a little bit brighter. We're going to be sitting through grief and loss, especially for those who are missing a loved one, who are longing for connection with a loved one who has crossed over. I believe that grief is with us all the time, but we can learn to manage that. Again, if you are experiencing grief, sadness, anxiousness, any mental health issues, I am no professional. I'm just bringing on the experts and the advice and messages through the angels to kind of get us all to start to understand being a spiritual being in a human body and experiencing the human emotions and the human thoughts that we have, because we have 60,000 thoughts a day. We're also going to be looking at old survival patterns, the ones that we built in childhood or during hard times in our life. We're going to figure out which ones are still serving you and which ones we need to release. Then we're going to do the beautiful work of learning to separate it all out. So we're going to try to figure out, what does your intuition sound like? How do your angels nudge you? When does your spirit team send you a sign? How do they send you a sign? And when you receive those, you're going to acknowledge them and trust them. And if there's an action to it, you're going to act on it. It's for spiritual beginners who are ready to wake up. It's also for seasoned seekers who are ready to go deeper into their human selves, kind of analyze and identify and release some of those loud thoughts that you might be having. And this is for a show that you want to feel closer to your loved ones or develop that new language with them. You were exactly where you're supposed to be. So, lovely soul, thank you so much for being here. This episode is me really trusting the angels and trusting my intuition and taking the step forward. I never imagined taking the podcast through this direction, but I think because I've been working on myself and my anxious thoughts and really trusting 100% that my angels will guide me to wherever this podcast needs to go, so that all of you can do that inner work as well. We are spiritual beings in human bodies, and we are here to experience being a human with these human emotions and these different experiences that we've experienced. Imagine experiencing the exact same thing with somebody else, a sibling, a friend, and both of you are going to tell the story completely differently because you both experienced something different. And we're here to talk about those experiences, talk about our spiritual awakening if you had one, talk about the signs that you've received, the messages, but also doing the inner work. And I believe that spirit doesn't nudge us towards anything specific if it wasn't related to our path or related to our purpose here on earth. So if this episode resonated to you, and if something in your chest says yes when you're listening, I want you to do one thing. I want you to hit the follow button, subscribe to the show, wherever you're listening, and share this episode with someone in your life who you think might need to hear this. Maybe somebody who's struggling with their thoughts and hearing all of the extra noise. Maybe someone who is searching for something more, something spiritual. Maybe it's for someone who needs to know that they're not alone, because every single one of us has a team of angels with them all the time. Your share, your follow, your reviews will help this podcast get to other people who might need to hear this message. Just like the podcast of Angels and Awakening was my nudge that changed my whole life, this podcast could be the same for somebody else. Lovely souls, thank you so much for sticking with me. If you're new, welcome. I can't wait to have these conversations. Until then, keep listening for that intuition voice underneath all the loud thoughts that we have. You've always had an intuition. It's built into your being. You have a team of angels so excited for you to be on this journey, because the way that angels are whispering it to me right now is that if we want to help others, we need to work on ourselves. And you're saying, I don't want to go help others. That's okay. But I think it's important that we all need to work on ourselves. Have a great day, lovely souls.